So we start with you, Paul. Yeah? No? Yes? Excellent. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending the session. So before I start off, can I have a raise of hands? Who has heard of Elavon? Hey, excellent. Our brand is getting stronger and stronger. Delighted. So that will avoid me saying the first joke, which was everybody always says Elavon, and then they say, oh, is that Eloquon or Evalon or any other name but Elavon? But great. So from my side, I run a team of technology partners with the objective of speaking to technology organizations to understand how they operate in the market space, in the value chain, within the customer journey, so that we can support and develop their capabilities, and we're providing a value add into the market space. So, before I crack on, what I wanted to do was to put up what the definition is of Omni-Channel. And when you look through it, there are a couple of key things that sort of come out here. One is multi-channel, marketing, selling, and servicing the customer. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's all down to developing a fully integrated, cohesive customer experience. And therefore, having single sight of the customer is critical. So by understanding that, we can understand how we're going to evolve Omni-Channel as we go forward into the future. So in order to take that step, we've got to understand who our customers are today. And so when you look at our customers, we've got the baby boomers who had no technology in the first place and have grown up. But interestingly enough, they have the most wealth out of all of us. So from a target market perspective, they are living longer, have more money to spend, and therefore should never be written off from doing any analysis of focusing on the market. And then as we go forward, you've got Generation X, which is, dare I say, my generation, where you have people who have seen technology come through. And, you know, back in the day, you had people with mobile phones who would carry them around in the bricks. I'm not sure if people can remember that. And then it would be the hard pickup. So very interesting. And then you move on to the millennials. So they're starting to use the internet and are relatively savvy. And from their side, their wealth is increasing, which is a good thing, and therefore their adoption of technology is there as well. And then you've got Gen Z. So Generation Z, there are our youngsters who are coming through, and all they know is technology. So their outlook on life is purely, right, can the tech do what I want it to do? So another question I've got is, does everyone in the, well, let me ask this. Is there anyone in the audience who doesn't have a smartphone? Very good. Excellent. So we're already on the technology curve, and we're fully adopting that. So from the Gen Z and millennial side, they're a lot more tech savvy, and yeah, if you look at the historical presentations that have been given, you can see that they are naturally migrating into the adoption of the new omni-channel approach. So the other thing about the Generation Z is that they're very active on social media. And if you look at the way that they have engaged with products, you know, all that new technology is predominantly generated by them. So the other generations are there, but they're not as active as the others. So then the interesting statistic that we hear about is e-commerce is growing. And that's correct. It is growing. But when you actually look under the e-commerce definition, it's not the actual traditional e-commerce element sitting in front of your computer that's growing. It's the actual adoption of mobile phone technology and tablet technology that's actually accelerating the growth. And here's a statistic for you that in 2022 they expect of e-commerce traffic, over 50% will be actually through the mobile rather than traditional desktop e-commerce. So now we know our definition of Omni and we know our customers. Let's talk about the actual reality of enabling Omni-Channel. So when you look at the slide here, lots of boxes and so on, but in reality, when you look at the way that we have grown up with this technology, you go into a bricks and mortar operation. They've got a really good in-store system that operates and is very functional. And you've got organizations which focus on that technology. And the same if they're doing mail order and telephone ordering, they've got that technology there. And the same goes with online. Now where we're seeing the fundamental changes, organizations are continuing to improve their existing product, and they are then trying to merge into the other areas. And this is where the challenge occurs in the market space, which is you're not having any organization which starts out with a footprint to say, I'm going to have a complete omni-channel platform no matter how the customer engages. What you're seeing is technology organizations moving into an area. So they are gaining and trying to learn the expertise of that sector. And then when you look at the gateways in those environments, you have great gateways that are e-commerce focused and great gateways that are card present focused. And then you've got gateways in the middle that focus on the IVRs of the telephone world. Now, what you're also seeing in that space is gateways where they are, yet again, moving across into the other areas. So there are lists of organizations where they are now saying, we can do omni-channel, but in reality, when you look at them, there is a deficiency. And the deficiency is in one of the areas that they are building into. So if you've got someone who's really strong in card present, the reality is they don't have the capabilities in e-commerce. Now, there are emerging technologies, that are coming out. So if I look at, if I give you sort of a couple of examples, sorry, you look at, say, Valitor or Freedom Pay as new technology organizations that are coming into the market. They have structured themselves in a way that they are building out true omni-channel platforms, which will service the future of this environment. And then you come down to the acquirers. Love the acquirers. The acquirer sector is an interesting sector. So when you look at the history of acquirers, you've got big acquirers in lots of local countries. So in the UK, 1 and 2 is WorldPay and Barclays. In France, it would be like BNP Paribas and Crédit Agricole. And there are different names in different countries. And one of the challenges for those organizations is trying to go into other markets. And that's where the crux is. So when organizations say, I'm a multi-channel, multi-country organization, how can I go into alternative markets? The message that comes down the food chain is, go and speak to someone in that local market. And back to the point of trying to create an omni-channel experience, that's where the challenge is when it comes down to payments. So they might be able to do it for e-commerce to a point, but then card present or any of the others, that's the difficulty. And I'll give you an example. There was one organization who was a pan-European organization, And so they went out and surveyed their European market. And they came up with over 60 points of interaction and contracts with across the various markets. So they ended up just giving up trying to talk about it, saying, we might have a problem. No, we do have a problem. Now let's see how we can fix that. So, and on top of all of that, we haven't even spoken about fraud, AI, loyalty. And when you add all of that into the mix on how everything is connected, it's a real challenge for organizations. So well, when I joined this space, there was a lot of people who would talk about delivery times. So, hey, we've got this great new product. It's amazing. And my example's always been on China Union Pay. So when this came out sort of 5 to 6 years ago, people would say, oh, yeah, we have China Union Pay. Oh, really? Great. So is it built into the primary host on the services you deliver? No. It's done on the side through a direct connection, and therefore it might as well just be an additional provider into the mix. And what we're also seeing today is that the technology companies still have not fully integrated some of these elements into it. So lots of challenges for this space. So if we go forward now, I've just given you a whole load of challenges on the previous piece, but when you talk about the trends that are going on here, one of the things we're seeing is mergers and acquisitions. So in theory, mergers and acquisitions are great. You know, people are spending money and they're growing out and they're building out their top line revenue. However, what we're seeing from that is that organizations are not necessarily standardizing on a single technology platform within their environment. What they're doing is adding another platform and trying to get some middleware to support it, which means that as you see over time, you go to any of the big organizations and you look behind the scenes and they have 3 or 4 different acquiring platforms that have 3 or 4 different gateways, which causes a fundamental issue for driving the customer experience in the future. So then on top of all of that, you've got regulatory compliance that comes down to the track. So everyone talks about PSD2, how that can impact, etc. Yet again, that's another area that organizations, from an acquiring perspective, but also from others, are trying to embed into their technology stack. And if you're running 3 or 4 different technology stacks, the pain of integration is there. Excuse me. So the other area is, I was speaking to someone in the corridors earlier, is let's talk about improving the connectivity. So what would you rather do? Would you rather have a defined increase in your e-commerce world, or would you rather try and theoretically knit your platforms together to give you the theory of an omni-channel solution? You know, and you know, in reality, I think organizations will say, well, we're all working in business here. We need a return on investment. We need a business case to support that. And they will probably drive to improving an existing channel and making it more effective. And then managing end-to-end payments. Yet again, the challenge there is that you see that new innovation that comes along, how quickly are people able to adapt that? And whenever the brand new shiny product comes out, how easy is it for you to access those new products? And I guess the final trend that we're seeing is back to the slide where you had the different areas of operations. You have the stores building out mobile solutions, and you have the e-commerce providers building out mobile solutions. And the question is who's going to win? Who's actually going to adopt the ultimate utopia, which is a single platform to consolidate to get a single view of the customer? That's the real question. So I guess from a summary from my perspective, it's quite a harsh reality of the omni-channel space. Yeah, don't worry, the technology is moving in the right direction. And when people come and say, Paul, where should we go? What's our view on the world? My view is that the technology organizations who have single processing platforms are going to be the ones that accelerate and drive change for the future. And those are the ones that people will adopt as they go forward, because that gives them more functionality and more capability to where they are. So if you are looking out there, my advice would be is, one, understand what technology sits behind what people are offering. Two, how quickly they can integrate new products into that platform. And three, will it flow as per your current business as usual requirements within that operating stack? And that's it.
Thank you. Any quick questions for Paul?